Just before we get started, I know there's been some on and off infrequencies with like how often I stream. Last weekend I was away, related to I was on a stag do for for the wedding that my partner and I have coming up. So yeah, I was recovering from that, but now we're in a good spot and should be able to get some streams coming in before the big day and before everything else unfolds there. Um, so what I'll do is I'll quickly grab what we've done so far. So we have our Playblast here. So what we did last week was this beginning section. And then it carries on into everything that we've done from that point onwards. So the part that I'd like us to do today is we are going to. It's a little bit later on the sequence when she begins to fight one of the like robot police, and there's a part that I want to do where we're going to add a sword transformation, and we're just going to give this one beat in the shot a little bit more of a flair and kind of keep the pace up because it kind of slows down just a little bit, and we can make it a little bit more exciting. So I have this clip here from a test that I did with a swords transformation, which I did show last stream, and showed this to some colleagues and friends as well, and we felt like the top one was probably the better way to go. Obviously, these aren't finessed final transformations; they're more like placeholder, if you will. But they're very easy to modify as and when I want to. So this is just a good placeholder to kind of get it started, and then from there we'll be able to make some cool, more polished transitions. So the parts that we're going to be reworking today is this part here. So if I just go into the shot, it's this part here where we initially had her walk along this beam, and then she's going to drop down, and then what we initially had, we had this hang time, which did work to the music as she swings through, and she has this hang time here in the air before she then rolls down. Then we had this kind of beat where nothing really happened when she settled here. It kind of just, there's this beat where the robot acknowledges her, and there's just like a little head change, and then she begins to climb him. But it felt a little bit stale. It didn't feel like there was a whole lot going on. And so I thought there'd be a good opportunity in here to have as she begins to drop, there's a little hang time here where she jumps into the air. I was actually going to have her arm go back in on itself. So we have the forearm transformation again, but now it's going into her body rather than out. And then she'll have half an arm through the swing. Then as we come back through here, now the sword is going to begin to appear out of the forearm. And then as she comes down, she's going to slice the robot's right leg. So then in here, as it comes through, instead of kind of settling into this, so like it's quite a soft ease as we kind of settle into this here. I want to make this a little bit more impactful and have a sword swipe, and it's going to send the lower half of his right leg flying out to the screen left, and then I'll add some sparks in later. I'll probably have him kind of react slightly, which also makes it more interesting when she then begins to climb him. He's obviously going to be on one leg. So yeah, that's the idea. There are a couple of things that I need to do just to prepare before we go into this, and that is I just need to open up another Maya, and we need to export the sword animation. I believe I don't have it exported yet, so it's probably best I do that first before we go any further. And then, yeah, we'll be in a good place to start reblocking that section. Then we can export that out as like its own entity, and then that'll be easy to import into the actual scene. Here we go. So we're going to be working off of that sword. So this guy, we can turn this off, and this as well. And then this guy, we just need to drop it down. It should be in the group right now. Yeah, it is in the group. And we need to lower this down to its origin, which is here. Just make sure it's all zeroed out. And then let's export selection as an ASCII. And then put this into animation. We'll call it sword transformation. The thing is, the thing that's really nice about this workflow is if I do want to polish up these transformations at any point, I can just mute the animation and then like isolate like we have here, and I can polish all the little intricacies of this without everything else moving or the camera moving. And then it should just connect when I unmute everything again. So now that I've exported that, let me just bring it in to the scene, and then we should have something to work with. Import sword transformation. So that should be in the scene now. If I bring it up here, there we go. Cool. So before we go any further, there's not much I want to change about the animation in the first half. Like the actual animation itself of her coming along here, this isn't really going to change. The only thing that's going to change is the hand itself retracting. So I need to find my beat where that's going to happen, which will probably start around here. Before it comes in. So around this point here, I'm going to turn off the mesh again on her arm. So that's all of this stuff here. There's just a forearm I want to actually change. So earlier on in the shot, I actually do have the keys of her arm turning on and off. So I can bring that into this part here as well. So we're coming through to this part here. So we'll select all of this and then we'll paste it again. And then in theory, her arm, there you go, her forearm just disappeared. So it comes up and then around here, the arm is going to disappear on that frame there. Perfect. And then I can take the transform animation on the forearm and I'll just reverse the animation so it starts out appearing and then it disappears. So we literally just take the same thing and reverse it. And again, we can polish this stuff later, but it's good just to give us a base to work from. So I have her mechanical arm. Where did I put you? Forearm transformation. So all of this stuff in here. You worked at a studio together called Hocus Pocus. That's really cool. I haven't heard those guys. What kind of stuff do they do? What are you using? What workflow am I using with this? Sorry, I only just started watching the stream stuff. It's all good. So just to give you a bit of context there, it's not like a crazy workflow. It's more that I have geometry inside of a group, and then that group is constrained to the forearm joint of her rig. So essentially what I meant was, even though I have all these intricate pieces that are folding in and out of her rig, I can just mute her rig at any point, and then I can isolate to just the group, and then I can see the transformation happening without all of the other things laid over the top. So that if I want to finesse any of the animation on the transformation, I can still then manipulate, tweak the animation, and then unmute everything, and then all the intricacy will still be there, but preserved within the rig. So it's more just to make it functional. It's not like an incredibly technical approach of workflow. It's more just it's manageable. So I'm kind of thinking ahead about how I can just make it easier for myself to work with. Because trying to animate all the stuff whilst everything is moving in camera space is going to be a real pain. Yeah, my brain isn't really wired to do anything like hyper management based when you're working with too many things at once. I like to just keep it simple. So I'm going to copy this animation. We have the arm transformation here, these keys. So we'll take all of this and then we'll paste it again, which was around in here. Oh, I'm going forward, I want to go backwards. So around here, this key, we're going to paste this again. Now at this point, these keys are going to start in her body, and you're going to see they're going to start to unfold outwards, or in theory they should. Oh, I know what it is. The group is also turned the visibility off. So in here, this needs to start off here, then turn on here. So now as it comes through, can you see the arm is beginning to come back on? And it's attaching itself. We want to do the same thing, but reverse it. So that's going to go into her body. So in other words, all the parts are going to start off in her hands, then they're going to split open, and then go into her arm. So then she's going to be left with half an arm. They've done a lot of advertising, but the show we did was actually was called Ready Eddie for Sky Kids. Yeah, I think my workflow has changed a lot. I think I spend more time living in the graph editor before I got my first job. Oh, it's interesting because I'm almost the opposite. I spend more time in the graph editor now because I know how to use it better than I did when I first started. I knew I was supposed to use it, but I didn't know how. Forced me to keep organized and stick to the times. That's fair. So I've got this animation now on her forearm, and I want to reverse this. So the easiest way for me to do this is if I just highlight all of the keys in the graph editor, and then on the time stats, if I just go times equals -1, that's going to flip in theory. Or it didn't. Let's try that again. Times equals -1 should flip all of those keys. There you go. So now they're all negative, but they're now the other way around. And I can just move it back into place. And then that means I didn't need to scale any of the keys. Everything's still like, all the relationship in the timing is the same, but now it's reversed. So now in theory, there you go. If we come through, now her forearm is staying attached, and then it's going to split open. And now you can see all the parts are separated. And then as she comes down, they are going to suck into her forearm and disappear. And now you can see she's only got half an arm. Now, I might need to change some of the timing on this so that it's faster. So I'm going to take some of these keys, and there's like 3 frames in there that we were holding in, so we could probably make that faster. We have that holds there, then it's beginning to go in. Now, I do want to begin to turn this stuff off at some point as well, but you can see her forearm, it's not really attaching at this point, and that's because her FK upper arm here isn't straight. So I need to straighten this out at this point. Just in here. Same thing in here, we can keep that straight. And is it still straight there? Does it need to be straight? Yes, it needs to be straight. There we go. So now she's essentially gone through, and we have the parts slipping in, and now she's got half an arm as she comes around. And then here, hey Owen, long time no see. It's been a while since I've seen you in the chat. How's it going? I just turned down the music because it was distracting me. If it wasn't distracting you guys, I'll just turn down my mic. But now I've got that part working. The next part we need to do is the sword coming out. So I'm going to use the same workflow we did last time with the sniper and the hand. So at this point here, just so I have something to work with, I'm going to take her whole rig and I'm just going to reset it back to origin. And then we have the sword group here, which right now the transformation is going to happen at a different point in time, but that's fine. Then I can rotate this around. So we want to make that 90 degrees. Then I can move it into position on her arm. Now, the scale may not also necessarily be correct, so before we go any further, I'll definitely want to tweak some of that. But also I need to consider the length of the sword and that kind of thing. It does feel a bit big, especially like the thickness of the disc around. I mean, it does scale up, so that could be cool, but at least for now, I do want to make it maybe a little bit smaller. Let's just shrink this down. Maybe something like this. And then I'm going to freeze the rotations and the scaling. Why did you not freeze? Why aren't you freezing? I didn't reference you. It should be able to zero out. Freeze. Scale. Alright, it's not working. It's fine. I mean, it was just me trying to be clean. It's not going to let me do it, apparently. But that's not an issue. So now I've got her forearm again. I can take the group of the sword and we can attach it. Maintain offset. And then I need to find the frame where we're going to turn on and off her visibility. So I can, now that it's attached, I can delete this key on her rig. And we're back into position. Now you can see the sword is there, right? So I'm going to find the parts where I want the sword to begin to turn on, which is probably this key here. So at this key, the visibility is going to turn off. The one before it's going to turn it was off, and then it begins to turn on here. But I need to take the geometry within that, and all the animation that we have, which is here, needs to be delayed. So it's going to start on this key here. So as it comes through, now you can see it beginning to turn on. But some parts of it are, oh, I know what it is. There are a few things we need to tweak here. So also the shader has some animation on it, which for some reason, this piece here, the shader, let me just check the shader because it shouldn't have the animation just happening just yet. It was kind of a temporary setup. Apparently, that's not even... It was saying it was Lambert 1. There we go. So go in here, select this. There you go. We have this animation on the shader itself. So that needs to be offset too. Now you can't see it again. So it comes out here. And then definitely needs to happen earlier, the blade. Now the blade's beginning to turn on. But it's happening way too late, it seems. So I either have to make the transition faster or earlier. One of the two. I think it should already be starting here, so I can take all of the animation and just bring it in earlier on the sword. So now you can see it coming through. We can see that sword transformation now. And then it's just going to come through and twist. So we have a rough base for how that's going to work now. The only thing is I could also see some of this geometry poking out. So I need to go in and clean that up. So let's find where that key starts. So it's off here. And then this is where it appears. Is that because oh, it's not splining? Okay. So I just need to isolate that piece, or we just shrink it down. There you go. So now you don't see it as it's coming out. Then it appears. So now we have that sword part happening. But this part here, some of the posing, again, just felt a little bit bland. We could add a bit more rhythm to some of this. So as it's coming through... Also, I don't kind of like how this pipe is kind of getting in the way of the silhouette. So we can tweak some of this. It's a little better as it comes through. And then as we come around, this is where I'm going to begin to have her twist. Now, the part that's tricky about changing all this stuff so late in the game is if I now have her twist a whole bunch of values, then that's got to be inherited for the rest of the shot. And you can see in my timeline, the shot is like 1,470 frames long, but we're currently on like frame 900. So I need to make sure that everything else is going to inherit that twist. So that's where layers can come in handy to do that kind of stuff. So that's probably what I'll do now, is before we go any further and create the breakdowns, I want to create the key pose that we're going to transition into, and I may need to use a layer to add the twist in as well. So I know that my final pose is going to be around here, and we're going to slightly tweak some of this now. So before we go any further, I'm going to save this. So as she comes up, I had this idea. She'll still be leaning forward the way she is, but her legs she was going to keep tucked together. Now it feels like the music's gone really quiet. And then we'll bring out the toe. Wrong one. Maybe just crank the music up a little bit. It's better. Yeah, cheers Owen for the modify freeze transformations. I should have done that, but it's working now. Probably not, like I say, probably not the correct, quote unquote, the correct way of doing it, but it works. So I'm going to have this hand, instead of being behind her, I was going to have that in front between her legs. Down here. And then just connect her shoulder forward a bit more. And then have her head looking up a little higher. I don't think she needs to be as hunched forward. And then I was going to get a little bit more twist to her body. And then this arm is going to be coming back. Now it looks, oh, it's because the other arm is in IK. So I need to tweak the arm so it remains in FK. So her left arm needs to be in FK. There you go. So now it's attached. And then try and find an angle for this sword. Still feel like I want to twist her spine more though. There's something about this feels a little bit unbalanced. I mean, it helps when I rotate her this direction. We've still got some clarity in her silhouette there that seems to be working pretty well. I might just twist this foot slightly outwards, a bit to the right. And then bring the knee in. Something like this. Now, do I have it more straight or do I have it at an angle? That's the question. I think something like this, just having that flow through the shoulders is kind of cool. So then the swipe's going to come around this way. The only other thing that's tricky about this in terms of clarity is their silhouettes are stacked over each other. So I'm trying to think if there might be a way to actually have her whole pose end a bit further back. So let's see if I can just shift that stuff. What if I just kept her arm where it was? Probably better staying with her. So now their silhouettes are clearer. That definitely helps. So now that I have this pose, I can rework the twist and the transition. The other thing that I need to do before I go any further though is also add the layer of her whole body twisting, because I want her to kind of do this corkscrew, essentially she's gonna do a corkscrew of her body, and then the follow through is then gonna carry on through into the arm and the sword, which is then what causes the swipe. So it's almost kind of like, for any Attack on Titan fans out there, it's kind of like Levi's cartwheel sword swipe that goes down the Beast Titan's arm, but instead of it being a Z axis, it's a Y. So it's more like twisting than it is tilting. That's the idea anyway. Hey Lasha, how's it going? Good to see you in here. So now that I've got this working, I need to rework this part in here. So I like this pose. So let's just nail down our timeline a bit. Because I think it'd be nice to add a bit more contrast to the rhythm as well. Because right now it kind of holds and then comes down quite quick, but then it just eases into it. It doesn't really have that impact. So I kind of want to have that nice kind of feeling to it. So what I'll do is, as we're coming in here, all of this part through here we're going to be reworking. Because I like this pose better. This is what we had before, or rather like this is the kind of thing we had before, and this is now what we have. It just looks a bit stronger and a bit more coherent. So I need to figure out the twist first before we do anything else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a layer. Make sure I save it before I break everything, because layers are a bit temperamental sometimes. So then I'm going to set a key here. I'll make sure we set a key earlier as well in the shot, so that we're preserving that stuff. Now in here, I need to turn this 360 degrees in the Y, in this direction. Now I do need to make sure it's exactly 360, because if it's not, then that will change the poses for the rest of the shot, which is why we have to be really specific here. So I can see in here my values in the graph editor. Currently that's actually by eye. I just posed that by eye and I got to 360.21. So that was pretty damn close. But I'm just going to take out the decimals to there. You couldn't even see the difference on the screen. But now in theory, if I play the rest of the shots, it should look the exact same. Like nothing has changed, right? Good, it hasn't. So the only things that I really need to do now is I'm going to bake this through with that twist, and then now I have that value, I can delete the in-betweens, or at least rework the in-betweens, and then the rest of the shot will still carry on the way it normally was. So yeah, it's kind of like a human Euler filter. Yeah. The only difference is a Euler filter prioritizes where there's the most consistency, whereas in this case it's a single pose versus the rest of the shot, so it's almost like the reverse thinking of what a Euler filter does. So that would be cool though with a Euler filter if you could just say prioritize this value. So if you had a spike where everything's clean but then you had this one spike up, you could say prioritize everything to this value rather than the majority. and then everything compensates the EULA to the place where you've targeted. That could be cool. How's your day going? How's the little one doing? Merging now. How are you feeling after the stag? Did you have the post-week dopamine that Chester mentioned? You're just feeling low for the rest of the week after such a high weekend? Cool, so that's baked through now. So now all of this stuff in here we can rework. So as we're coming out of this, I do want to slightly rework. I want to have her still lead with her chest, but maybe we lead even more, so it's a very distinct change. And then I want to have her begin to twist. Now, as she twists, I want her to lead around to her left, I believe. So we're coming around this way, or is it around that way? She's coming around, twisting to her left. From her right to her left. So she's going this way. She's going to come around like this. Now the arm was coming up here, so I want to kind of almost delay that left arm. I can have this arm already tucked into her body a bit more. Trying to think what to do with the arms. I think this will actually come through a bit straighter. We still want to read the blade the entire time, and I'm going to be adding a lot of like smear effects to see the blade, so you'll see the blade swipe around here. So I think that won't be an issue. As we come through though, I would like to create this nice clean line of action, and I think having the arms the way they are right now with the feet kind of straightened. I'm actually going to change this to FK on the legs for the twist. It's a very quick transition, but because I'm leaving it in steps, I don't have to worry too much about FK-IK switching that much. So I think it should be fine. It just makes it easier to create the shapes I'm looking for. So I'm going to take all of these and we can reset them. Just get the angle. And then we have this hyper flex happening on the legs. Then the feet needs to be pointing away from us. I'm going to fix the flow of the legs in a moment. Just getting these shapes working first. Then we can move these up to get the curvature. I might still lead with the chest even more here. keep the head tucked in. Keep the flow of the pose with the arms. It's going to be tricky to create the arc in such a tight spacing, but I think I can make it work. We'll see how it feels when I play it back. I have a feeling I might need to rework some stuff. Sorry, never recovered from my way though. Yeah, we'll be prepared for that because it's going to be in the playlist again. So, and you're going to be the lead vocalist. Thank you, Owen. For context, everyone, on the stag do, I'm not even sure whose idea it was, but someone had the genius idea as dressing me up as Elsa from Frozen. So we did a lot of karaoke, and they made me sing Let It Go twice. So that was good fun. Do you think I sung it better the first or the second time, Owen? That's the real question. I feel like I was more in character the first time. So it kicks out. And then we're coming down. So at this point here, you can see that there's still a bit of hang time. So I'm wondering, do I spend this key here can actually be the previous one? And then we can ease out in this key. Which will allow, we can initiate the arc a bit more with this arm here coming around, which will help. And we can begin to tuck the head in, curl the chest a little bit more. And then we can get this arm coming around. Then by this point here, I can already have it coming under. And then as we come down, that's where we're going to add more twist. So at this point here, her body needs to be already turning. There's going to be more twist to her chest. Now, do I have her arm still tucking in so that she lands on his shoulders? So she's kind of holding her body here. And then we keep her legs in the FK positions. Like this. Perfect rendition both times. You're too kind, Owen. Too kind. So now we're beginning to land. So this is going to be the tricky part. So she's coming down. So she still had this twist coming around in here. She needs to land. Trying to think the logic here. Is she landing and rolling into the slice? Because it needs to be more like a twist. I really worry that I've accidentally twisted her whole arm the wrong direction. But we'll find out. So I'm wondering if it's now at this point, it might be worth deleting the keys. Because we have this key here. So I'm going to delete these frames, and then we're just going to begin to ease into the final, and we'll see if this gives us something to work with. So her FK, IK switching, all that stuff, we'll keep as it is from the previous pose. She's coming down. She twists here. I have a feeling I may have twisted her the wrong way, even though I tried to prevent that from happening. But we'll see. It's really hard for me to figure that stuff out sometimes. I don't know if anyone else struggles with that. When you have like really complex rotations, to know which direction you're supposed to turn it. She's turning here. She's gonna turn this direction. Maybe she can be profile here. This is where her legs will come through. One needs to land already. So her left leg is already in position. Yeah, I think I turned her the wrong way, guys. Let's try it this way. And then if I flip her Z, I wonder if this helps. A little bit. I've made a right real mess of this, haven't I? So I was having her turn this direction, and then she needs to turn to her. Yeah, I really did mess that up. I just got my directions mixed. I thought, I'm so confused. She needs to turn this way, which means as she's coming around, this is the direction she's going. This is why you don't animate complex rotations. He's only stopped animating for a week and he can't animate anymore. So she needs to go to the right. So we're seeing more of her chest, then we're going to see more of the side of her body. Which actually might work in my favor, because then I can tuck her legs in here. Which might help with her landing. Then I just need to make sure I preserve some of the clarity on her arm as she's coming through. The question is, do I actually have her whole arm tucked in as well? Which direction is the arm? This way. I forget which way is the actual forearm now. Let's just reset this. Okay. And why has this got constraints on it? Oh, it's turned off. That's fine. So this is the direction. So if I do something like this, I just need to make sure I actually turn off her mech arm transformation as well, because I forgot to do that earlier. This shows you the beauty of animating is never clean. It's never like a simple, even like people who've been doing it for years still like can get a bit messy sometimes. So there we go. Now it's tucking in. I'm feeling a bit better about this. I can clean up some of the rhythm of the posing and stuff. It would be good just to get like fleshed out the broader strokes first before I tidy it up. So now as we're coming in, as we're coming through, we're twisting this direction. This arm, I want to keep into the body. Was it this arm? Yeah, it was this arm. So now, yeah, I'll see how the path, like the trail of the sword is going to play out in a minute. Hey Scott, how's it going? The legend himself who helped us with the rigs. Oh, it happens to me too much with rotating in the wrong direction. Very easy trap, yeah, for sure. I always struggle when the key is more than 60 degrees more rotated than the previous key. Adding more keys helps me. Yeah, for sure. Or you can kind of use spline, can't you, to kind of see how it's going to unfold, but then you could potentially get into gimbaling there as well, so there's pros and cons, I guess. 11 years as a pro animator yesterday, and I don't think I've ever animated cleanly. I love that. But congrats on the 11 years. Very cool. I feel like I've done something to her shoulder here. Yeah, that shoulder's definitely broken. Whatever was going on there. I'm thinking if I can just create some parallel lines in her posing, keep it graphic. Something like this. And then she's going to come down. So this is, now we got to this key here. So she is going to begin. She was twisting around to her right. So this is where we need to go back to the previous key. Or at least begin to blend. So she was coming around this way. Yeah, I think this is starting to make a little bit more sense. I think. So she's coming down. That leg's going to land. Maybe I'll just have both feet land at the same time, kind of keep her more calculated. And then her left hand, I'm going to keep to the body for now. Because I want to prioritize her left arm with the sword. Needs to be coming around this direction, across her body, because that's the one that's going to slice. And then that's when we go bang. And then that little thunk sounds there in the bass we might be able to use as where it hits. So let's try this key here. It's going to land into position. So this arm can definitely be, all the controls now should be locked in. There's no FKIK switching or anything like that. Her right arm is going to be to the floor. And then I'm going to have her driving with her chest. And this is where we get the slice. I do want to keep the spacing very tight. So the thing that's going to be tricky is we need to still see the path that the blade is going to take. And it needs to still kind of cross the line of where the leg is. So I could just follow, I could have the whole arm, like the whole leg come off. Or do I just have the lower leg? What do you guys think about that? Hey Animation Addict, how's it going? Yeah man, the mech arm is perfect. It's working really well, Scott. Cheers. I've had no issues with it since since we started now. Since we got it working. And then on the very next frame, I'm going to have it slice. Maybe we can slightly overshoot. And then we'll settle back up. Getting a little bit of drag in the chest. Just creating these little offsets. Now, normally if we want to keep it really controlled, you wouldn't really overshoot too much. You'd kind of just keep it easing in because it makes it feel way more clean. So I am wondering if it's worth keeping it simple. Something like this. It's a lot snappier now. So then I can do some temporary swipes in there just so we get a bit more context. But I'll probably add that after. I do want to get like the robot reacting now because we do still have this beat in here before she then runs. I also need to tie in the pose of her running too. But yeah, all good here, Animation Addict. Glad to be jumping back into this after the break off, which has been really nice. And I felt like the break was needed, but I'm also glad to be jumping back into things. I'm just going to move her foot back here. And that foot roll we need to reduce. It's tricky with the... I might just have to cheat the leg just to get the volume. And then this foot needs to already snap into place. There you go. Then this guy, we're easing out. And then turning off all of this stuff. There you go. Now that arm does, that screen left arm, or her right arm rather, needs to stay in front because it was behind, it was in front of her body. And then I'll keep that swords dragging for a bit because the transformation for that arm is going to happen a bit later as well. Get a bit of twist in the body there. I think that's working. Because then here, I was going to have a hang time when she's doing the air kick, when the transformation happens again. So as she turns through here, we're keeping the arm transformation here with the sword. But then in this point here, the sword's going to come back in. So now we should probably do that transformation too, to see if it even works. Ah, so cool. I'm glad that the timing is working for you. I might do a couple more like this. We'll see how I get on. Depends when I get more work basically coming in, because obviously I'd normally be working at this time. So now I need to reverse the transformation for the sword. So we're going to copy this animation, find the position which was here, paste it again, and then reverse it. Let's just save this. Now let's take all of this, go times equals -1. That flips that the other side. Then I move it back into position. So now it will start off here. So now you see that's going to go back into her arm. The only thing I also need to do is the shader for the blade itself, which is this geometry. And here also needs to have copy, paste, and then we need to flip this. So this key is here, this key is here. Now that's going to begin to turn off. So through here, at this point here, I'm going to straighten her forearm to allow it all to come back in on itself. That's the only crux with this workflow, is all of this needs to remain straight in order to go into her arm correctly. And for some reason it is slightly offset as well. I don't know why. There's no to do with that. No, it's not to do with that. Is it because it's in IK? No, it's in FK. I do wonder why that's offset now. bit strange. Because it isn't offset earlier, is it? In here. Is it offset? Maybe. It's hard to tell when it's bent. But I can take this geometry. There we go. So at this point here, this stuff needs to remain straight. So that it can all go into her arm. Let me just check the sword animation. It should all be finished. Yeah, it's all finished at this point, other than this blade, which is invisible. Which means I can actually just turn off the whole geo. So that part there, I'm going to key that, and then this key, it's going to be turned off. So now it's going back into her arm in that beat where she's in the air. And then as she comes down, she's going to kick. And then around this point here, we need to begin the transformation of her mechanical arm again. Now, this is going to be the tricky part, because she's definitely got to have it by the time she cat passes here, because she needs to touch this railing, and she's going to slide down the sign. So that's the next tricky part. So I'm going to take her arm transformation on her biomechanical one, which is this one in the graph editor. Then we're going to take all of this again. We're going to take all these keys, and we're going to copy, paste. So now we've got these back again. I also want to make sure I turn on here. So this is keyed here. Now this is turned back on. And all this forearm transformation is going to begin to happen in here. Can you see the arm now starting to transform? Thing is, this is going to have to be super fast to get there in time. You see how in here, this has got to be quick. Like, I don't think there's going to be much time to see the transition. So this is definitely going to have to be a faster one. So it's a question of how fast does it happen? And what keys am I removing to make that transition work? It might mean that the hand doesn't necessarily just go straight, like it doesn't hover in the air in this hang time, it just goes straight into the final key. So here's an example of what I was referring to earlier when I was talking about muting. So if I just take the body, we'll just mute everything. Now her whole rig, if it doesn't crash on us, there you go, it's muted. So if I select any of these controls, in theory, they should all be muted? Or is it just the ones that were in the channel at the time? Some of it's just the channels. That's fine, I think. So now her body doesn't move, right? Like as I'm moving along, she's not changing, which means I can now isolate to that group in the perspective view. So I have this. I can isolate down to this now. Sorry, I don't know why I've got an alarm. There we go. So now I've got this, and nothing else is moving in the scene. I can just rework this animation if I need to. So I can find the keys that I don't really need anymore. So we have this key here. We can start just essentially deleting some of this stuff. So I'll make sure it's all keyed before I break anything. Like this transition as it comes out and then down. There's like a hang time in here as well. I don't think we need the hang time, and I don't think we really need all these extra keys, all these extra frames of the fingers coming back together again. So let's delete this key. We're coming out. We're just going to pop straight into this. I'm just going to make the transition faster. So I'm deleting, at this point, I'm kind of deleting every other key. So it's going twice as fast. And then all of this stuff in here as it begins to lock in. All these frames here, so straight to this. And then locks, 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 locks. So we can delete this one as well. Delete this one. Delete this one. Then, okay. So I think we've shaved quite a lot of time by doing that. So I just need to shift these keys into place now. So I've probably saved ourselves like half a second worth of transformation. Maybe more. In fact, I'm pretty sure it is more than that. So now this is the transformation. I think that's a lot faster. It's a lot more efficient. So now if I turn everything back on, I can unmute her. Unmute all. I accidentally selected mute all again. And then select everything again. Unmute all. Now in theory, maybe it's enough time to read her transition. So let me just save this. If you're not using the sword to kill the robot, could it be an idea to transform the sword to the hand where she lands on the ledge? If there's a bit more time, just a thought, having seen very little of this. When you say, well, she's using the sword to amputate him, to disable him, and then she knocks off his head with her foot. So, I mean, you could transform the sword. Well, I mean, that's even more to your point. If she transforms the sword once she's on the ledge, then what does she use the sword for now? Because she only uses her foot after that point where she lands. I don't really want to rework that part. So if there is ever a time where she uses the sword, it would be in that beat once she's on the ledge. But I think that's a bit anticlimactic to be like land, sword out, slice, then carry on. I think it has more momentum and dynamism to it if she kind of slices mid-landing. At least that's my perspective, but I appreciate your input still. Maybe you can elaborate a bit more on the idea. Oh yeah, the amputation hasn't happened yet. That's why I still need to do that part. I was just getting the transformations working before I know how to do the robot. Sorry, I didn't mean to tease you or to troll you with the alarm. It may go off again, just so you know. So don't let it spook you twice. So there you go. So now as it comes out, you see that transformation there. And then by this point here, it's already transformed. So it kind of happens mid-action. You're not really supposed to notice it so much. I could maybe have it transform in this beat here. I do need to, once the transformation happens, which is this key here, now this arm transformation needs to turn off. So we're going to key this off on this frame, and then we're going to turn back on her actual rig forearm. Sorry, I know this is a lot of juggling, but it does make a lot of sense when you know the workflow. So now all of this, we're now going to turn back on. So this is the rigged version. And then the rest of the animation should play out normally. There you go, now you can see it's the rigged version of the hand where everything's animated correctly. For some reason, though, these parts probably aren't keyed. Yeah, I accidentally turned those off. There we go. Right, we should be in a pretty good spot now. I did think it's a bit anticlimactic having the sword out and then nothing happens. Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely going to be something that happens. There's an intention for the sword. So it's this part here. Then that's going to cause the robot's leg to come off. So now we actually get to do the robot. So obviously, well, you can already see he's quite far away from her, but there's a little bit of like cheating going to be involved in that part. But then who doesn't love a cheat? So he's walking along, doing his everyday thing. Then she comes in and ding, and then that's when he's going to kick his leg off. So I need to add some stuff in here. I've got some breathing room, to be honest, before she begins to climb up him. So I definitely know at frame 95, I want to keep this, and everything up to this point here is staying the same. So I can delete this key, and now we can begin to rework him. So at this point, I definitely want to turn his right leg into FK. And then now I can take this part off. So then it's going to go cling. So this is the question, guys. Do we cut off only the lower half of his leg or the whole leg? Because I'm thinking I think for readability, it makes sense that you see the whole joints come off higher because there's more of a silhouette change, because otherwise you don't really see this. It's already being stacked here. So my intuition does say, like, do we take it off like this kind of thing? This kind of idea. And then at this point here, that leg's gonna just have come off completely. That's the idea, right? Hey Yuki, how's it going? And then obviously the thing is, when I now move him, the leg is attached. So I don't think I can change, no, I can't change the parent, or can I? IK follow, full vector follow space. No, so there's no like world space on the FK. So I'm gonna have to use another locator to make that work. So what I can do is on this frame here, I'll copy the world space. Create a locator, put this into position, scale it up so I can see it. And then at this point here, the FK will be attached to the locator. So we'll select the locator. I'll call this robot leg. And then I will constrain that to the lower leg. And now when I move the locator around, when it switches later, here, now I can animate the leg independently from the robot. It would be quite funny just to see it go like absolutely flying, like it just like smacks off of something, or like I do want to have this idea of it sparking, so I've got to kind of figure out how to make that work. Oops, I'm selecting the rig again, and I'm not selecting the locator. I'm just going to do this straight ahead to get something working. I do want to kind of clear the silhouettes if I can, that's the other thing. So in here, we're going to have it crash down. I'm just kind of straight ahead playing this out. Now, where's the locator again? There's something about that landing that felt a little off. There, that rotation. That definitely needs to happen earlier as well. Just want it to be faster. We'll try something like this. And the good news is, now that part is animated, it's completely isolated to the locator, so I can animate the robot and then the leg is on its own thing. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Good to hear. Yeah. I'm happy to be animating again, to be honest. So then, I do wonder in here, as we're coming through, maybe at this point here, he begins to notice her. Then as he slices, we do want some kind of reaction. I want it to be subtle, because I don't want it to take away just yet. Like, I kind of want him to... I don't know if I want him to have, like, a full-on overreaction to it, because I think it's almost funnier when the robot wouldn't react to it much at all. At first, this is kind of just like, oh. You know what I mean? I wonder if I get a little bit of drag on that arm. Because the other thing is, at some point, we are going to need to go back to this pose where she climbs up on him. Which I found here. Like, it's going to have to look similar to this. Which, for some reason, that leg... Oh, it's the switch. So that switch, from this point onwards, needs to remain... There you go. So now it's attached to the locator. That's okay. We're back. We're back. So, from here to here, there you go. So now he's only on one leg. I also want to kind of create a button, just because I keep on selecting that leg and it's annoying me. So let's just create a button in the picker. I'll just put without leg. Let's make this smaller. Copy this. And then we'll do everything but that guy. And then replace. And then we'll call this with out leg. Do it this way. And then save that. So, hey, wait, okay. I've got to find the robot, my picker. There you go. Yes. And there you go. Now I can select everything without the leg in it. Just a bit easier to work with. So let's come through. She's doing this kind of hop. I'm kind of just doing this straight ahead on twos. I don't know how it's going to play out, but yeah, we'll see. I do kind of want to... He's going to put some weight down on her, I think. What does he do here? Yeah, so he pushes up. So here... He's going to suspend in the air. I do wonder if we want to beat where he's kind of gaining his balance, or he doesn't quite know how to respond. This is the thing that's going to be tricky. Because there's still a beat in here, which we don't really... She's not doing much, but I want something to be happening to him. So maybe I'm trying to think how to. Maybe he's kind of going off balance. Something like this. So that leg's going to come into the air. And then here we're going to begin to come down. So the leg's going to lead for the hop. I don't want to make it overly overlap and follow through-y in like a really bouncing, like a lot of contrasted way, because he is supposed to be a robot. So I'm trying to get a little bit of follow through on the arms and that kind of thing, but I'm trying to be quite reserved with it. And then that should transition into the little hop. Again, I haven't played any of this back properly, so I don't really know how it's going to play out, but we'll see. So at this point here, he is going to push back up. And then there's going to be a little air and a little suspension in the air. Yes, it's kind of working. The inertia is not working, like the momentum. So he comes to the right, then he goes to the left, stops, goes to the right. So I've got to figure out that balance. He almost needs to come more to the right. There you go. Figuring out the balance. And then this is where the leg's going to have to rework, because we had this whole spin thing, but now it's not going to quite work. Because now we only have 2 legs. Oh, we have 1 leg rather than 2. So that leg's going to have to stay on the ground. And then her foot's going to have to stretch slightly. And then this foot's going to have to stay on the ground, but just continue to twist. Trying to figure out which direction he's going. So that's his back, but his head... Hold on. His chest is here. He's twisting here. So his root... Oh, we really delayed the head. That's what we were doing. It's a little anticlimactic. It needs to continue to rotate, really. Just reworking slightly some of this. Yeah, that's the other thing. He's got to catch his balance. It's hard making it read the twist with all these components. Yeah, that foot really can't come off the ground very much. I might be able to get away with it, to be honest. Just keeping it on the floor. Yeah, I think the cheat might just work. I want to see how this plays now with everything we've done today. Might actually get a little bit of something interesting to look at. So let's turn off the locators. Save that. Yeah, it should work. And then I just want to see the transformation. Still around here. So I'll play this. Just get a Playblast of that working. There's still a lot of this stuff when I'm looking at it, I'm like, this needs a lot of cleaning up. But the foundations are there to build from, and that's the longest part. So I think it's in a pretty good spot, to be honest. It's a big shot. So we're on version 37. That's the other thing, right? Like, I'm sure a lot of us have had shots where it's a long process, so you end up versioning up and you're doing, by the end of it, say you've been working on a shot for 2 or 3 months, you probably will end up on like version 50, 60 plus, There's one person at work who was crazy the amount. I think he was on a shot for like 3 months. Or he was on the production for 3 months. I think he was maybe on the shop for 2 months, say. And he had like 160 versions, which is insane. We're only on 37 right now. So all things considered, I mean, it shows there's still a fair way to go, considering how long the shot is and how complex it is. But I think we've made good progress considering the amount of time that has been put into it. So yeah, I'll play it through. I'll just turn off the lo-fi and we'll see how it feels. Yeah, it feels pretty good. I do wonder if the transitions aren't reading enough. Like, there's this whole thing where we're walking across here. Maybe this arm transformation can happen earlier, because I really do still lose it in this part here. And then it feels like through the whip, we just happen to have the sword. So I almost want to see the sword transition happen later, maybe faster if needs be. And I think we need to have the arm transformation here also happen earlier. Thanks, Callum. So what I'm going to do, put the lo-fi back on, is we'll find where the arm transformations happen and we'll just slightly switch it up. So we have this is her arm stuff here. That's her mech arm. And then we also need her geometry. Her transformation arm geometry, which is this stuff here. So I'm going to select all of these little pieces, because there's so many keys in different parts now that it's easier just to select it all at once and switch up that way. So we definitely want this stuff to be earlier so that you see her arm missing very clearly. And you see the transformation very clearly. And then there'll be a more distinct part where you see the sword come out. So in the graph editor, I've got all this stuff here. So maybe around here, it can already begin to happen. So there, now you can see the arm transforming. And then by this point here, it's already kind of gone. Maybe we can make it happen faster as well. I'm going to take out some of these keys. There. So now it's kind of already missing. There. Still might happen a little earlier, I reckon. Maybe a couple of frames, just so we clearly see. There you go, the arm is gone. Then as we're coming through here, the sword shouldn't be out yet. So we can take the sword animation, and we can also make that happen a little earlier too. Or later, rather, sorry. It might need to be faster, honestly. It's really hard to say right now without the in-betweens. But also, this is revealing, again, we need to change the shader. So that's the only thing that's annoying, is I can't select the shader with everything else because it's under all the attributes. So let's take that, bring that back. There you go. So now you're seeing the sword. But some of these parts definitely need to come out faster. So I'm going to take these parts here to... I reckon these first... That one's fine. Maybe we take out this one. And this one. So we're taking out those two keys. And then I still feel like it needs to happen faster. Like, maybe delete this key. Delete this key. Just because I really want to read the shape before we move into the next part. There you go. It's just about enough time. We might even be able to make the hang time a bit longer on her. So like we change the animation a little bit faster through the swing. So this is on the 2, this is on the 2. So we do have this time in here, which is working. I think this transition might need to happen. That's on the 3, so we can take that a little later. Yeah, I reckon we can make this faster as well, just to give us time to read the sword. And then I can add some extra in-betweens in here just to give us a bit more context. So let's add an in-between in here. And then we can keep the inertia going slightly. So we're coming around here. Keep her momentum going higher. Yeah, going a little bit further forward. And then there is an extra in between. It feels like we need in here for sure this one key just so we read the landing. So I'm going to in between this. I know we're kind of getting into blocking plus territory, but it is for clarity. So I do kind of just want to make sure I get that working. So this is where we're almost in the most ball-like state. We're coming around to the left. And then her feet can already touch the ground, so we read the contact. Because we weren't really reading it before. We need that extra in between to make this read. Can make it feel a bit more elegant with her toes. Keep her arms in. Just simplifying some of these shapes. And this sword, we want to make sure that we read the path. As that comes through. And then that's going to swing around. Definitely want to favor the down here. Stick that leg out. There you go. It is quick. Might be a bit too quick, but it just allows clarity on the sword transformation. So there's a fine balance sometimes when we're juggling these things. The limitation is the music, right? So the music is determining when beats need to happen, because that's the whole purpose of the shot. So that part makes it tricky. But it does also kind of force you to be creative in different ways. Like you compensate with other ways in different techniques. So it's a definite challenge that way, but it really helps you kind of get a sense for the feeling and how to like work your posing and your breakdowns and your spacing and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll see how it plays. That jump down and swing off the pipe looks lovely. Great line of action. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. How do you make that hotkey for adding in-betweens? So it's on Animbot. I mean, you can do it with regular Tween Machine. It doesn't have to be Animbot. But yeah, I'll show you. It's in the preferences. I've used it for years. It's really useful. Yeah, so the beats are there now. I still feel like it's a bit fast though. I reckon I can have that slice happen a bit slower. And then that's when he comes in. So I'm just going to stretch those keys out and see how it plays. Luckily, there's no transformations involved in that part, so it doesn't require like a whole bunch of retime. There. So 899 is where her slice needs to happen. So she's coming out. This is fine. Just this transition. So I can delay this stuff. Still on twos, but it's just delayed. Oh no, it's frozen! Oh, good. It didn't break, it didn't break. I was worried that it was going to crash. So there, that has to happen on this key. Delaying some of this stuff. So now the drop can happen a little slightly slower. We're talking like adding a couple of frames here and there. So it's not going to be crazy fast, but it'll be slower than what it was. Just gives us a bit more time in the hang time, which is great. Yeah, that's better. So now I need to take the robot, I need to take the locator and the robot and slightly retime that too, so that it syncs up again. Yeah, frame 899. Yeah, just to give you just to give other people context if you understand already there. If you just right click, you've got hotkeys in your tween machine, in your Animbot, sorry, and then you go to tween slider, and then there's a whole bunch of different values here you can bind stuff to, but I have it set to 5 different keys. So I set mine to I, which is set to tweener, which means slap bang in the middle, and then I have to the right of that O, I have it set to 2/3, which is like 30% of an ease in, and then 7/8 is more like a 75% ease in, and then to the left of the middle one we have U, which is the opposite of, is the reflection essentially. So it's 1/3, which is a 30% ease out, and then there's a 75% ease out, which is the 1/8. So those are the bindings I use. It's very similar to the values I used to use before Animbot came out, and it works the same way. So yeah, it works well. It essentially just gives you a template for your spacing, saying do I want it to be a tight ease out or a more broad ease out, or same for ease in, or you can just go halfway in between. So yeah, it has its uses. So I'm going to select the robot, and then we've got the robot leg, so that's all selected. Now I need to find the key where she sliced, which is again 1899. So the leg comes off on that key there. So all of this can just be a bit faster, I guess. We're not talking much though. It's only been delayed a little bit. So I might be able to take some of these keys that were on 3s and put them onto 2s, and I might even just get the job done. Still a little bit too late. Let me just zoom in here, it's hard to see what I'm doing. Turn off the music. There you go, I can actually see what I'm doing. There we go. For some reason these keys, there's a stray key there with the leg. All this stuff here can be snapped back. There we go. Nice. So let's see how that plays out. Cool. Press save. Turn on the music. Playblast. Is there a way to set a hotkey to reset the pose without Animbot? Yeah, I'm sure there are. You could probably create a script, right? I guess the part that's difficult is it's okay to do it with like the default channels, like your translate, your rotate, your scales. But if you've got like specific parameters that are set by default on a different part of it, that can be tricky. Like if you have FKIK switching, whatever it might be, and it's not a value of 0 or 1, that can be hard to set up, I imagine. I really don't know. I'm sure there are tools out there. Maybe some people in the chat would know a good one. Maybe Scott has a good idea. Is it me? Oh, I was wondering why my staging looked wrong. I had my 2D pan still on when I was playblasting. Like a Muppet. There we go. Replay blast. I was wondering, I was like, hold on a minute, she's going out of camera. Like, why is she now out of camera? Do I need to change the camera? No, I just need to turn off 2D pan. The alternative, I guess, you could do is you could use Studio Library. So you could just create a pose in Studio Library that has all your default settings that you want to use, and then you can just apply it at any point. And you know, you can select individual parts as well if you want those. So there are ways around it, I suppose. That one's a little bit maybe not the most functional because you'd ideally just have a button on your shelf or a hotkey, like you say. That's not really a hotkey. I haven't really answered your question there. But it's still something. Okay, let's pause and have a play. Yeah, that feels pretty good. The only part that now feels really quick is the way she steps and runs away, which is, it does this like quick run here. So it's these keys, this. So she does this quick jump, and then this is slower. So let's take that key, that should be on the 2. This should be maybe on the 3. This step here, we need to favor to the left. That's better. So now the inertia is working a bit better. There you go. Right, let's play that again. There was something about the timing and spacing on that bit that was just a little bit off. Sorry, someone put something in the chat and I went to allow it and for some reason it hasn't added it. So sorry that didn't come up in the chat. Just play blasting. I've turned off the music just because we're about to play this back in a second. But yeah, I'm quite happy with how this has turned out. There's always a little bit of apprehension when you make these broader changes, especially when you have these transformations. I've made the preset version of them, but I don't know how the timing is going to work out. So obviously that's where you have to play around with some of the spacing and that kind of stuff, and the timing of it. There's something about the robots hopping I'm still not feeling. Yeah, I think I need to keep it more minimal, to be honest. I need to just reduce that stuff down because I think it's a bit distracting. I do wonder if I can just take all of that and just reduce it back. This is just me being trying to be a bit hacky. So if we take up to here, let's take all of this and just scale it back. So he still does stuff, like he's still hopping around, but it's just not as broad. There's something about the translates as well. So it's going, is it this one? Yeah, it is this one. So this goes to the right, left, here. So this needs to lean forward earlier. And then I think I need to have him lean back earlier too. Let's try that. Now, I actually was considering just play blasting the entire thing anyway, just to see how it plays all out. So, and it also kind of just gives everyone a better idea of the full picture and the full vision, because I haven't done that for a while. Each stream I do, we show the little segment, and then we just carry on. So I'm going to turn on all our rope rigs, our shuttle and everything, and then we'll give it a full-on play blast, which might take a minute, but I think it will look cool. Like, it's just nice to have a look, even from my own, like, you know, my own reassurance that this is making progress, and it is kind of coming. It is all one part of one big idea. So I'm gonna make sure I've got everything turned on that needs to be turned on. Looks to be good. The shuttle was there. The shuttle is there. Cool. So what I'll do, I think I did turn the lights off. It's just nice to distinguish her from the background a bit more. Let me just see if I turn on some ambient. Or it might even just be better. Hold on. Trying to think of the best way to just make her pop a little bit more from the background. So yeah, I'll turn on an ambient light. And then I will just take the background and we'll just put a different shader on it to make it a bit darker so that she pops. Then you can just see her a bit clearer. Cool. So I will... Also, it's kind of nice because it's just an ambient. It kind of gives you that feeling of the cell shading that I'm going for in the final product. So that's kind of nice as well, just to add on the side. Oh, my alarm is going off again. Don't worry, it's not your house. Sorry about that. Let me just get this foot out the way. There we go. That is always bothering me, that silhouette. Right. This is actually kind of cool though, seeing this a little bit more clean, because I always have this vision of how I want it to look. And this is already... I'm not saying this is nowhere near the final product, by the way, but this already looks closer to it just by doing this. So, yeah, exciting. This is also good to test every now and then for anyone who does large shots like this. Sometimes it's good just to play blast the entire thing, because you never know where you may have accidentally moved or clicked something in a different section of the shot, and now you go to a later or earlier part of the shot, and now it's entirely broken. So it's a good way of just testing to make sure that everything actually still functions the way you intended to. But yeah, she's just looking a little bit more flat. So the idea is that she's going to be more cell shaded, and she'll have some line work. And I do want the line work to look more like a 90s anime. So there's going to be like artifacts. It's going to be a bit distorted, a bit noisy, which I'll do all of this in Blender and probably a bit of comp as well. But I can find some references while we're waiting for that to Playblast. Style reference. So I'm not even sure this is all of the ones that I've gathered, but I mean this stuff's a good example. So here, for instance, you can kind of see that there's this like, it's not perfect. Some of the line work, it's a little bit overlaid and a bit distorted, and the resolution as well. You can kind of see where there's like color apparition happening on the sides, where like some of the light's bleeding through. You can see the noise and the distortion in the shading. Even the like simplification of the hair shading as well, I want to try and achieve. Even on her face, like there's very simplified shadows. It's not all intricate. You have the hairline and then a bit on the nose and the chin, for instance. So like, I do intend to try and do a lot of this. And there are some tools that you can use. There's some node behaviors that you can use in Blender to get to this sort of result. So for anyone who's interested in that, I actually have a whole playlist that I've been saving on YouTube with all of the different techniques and tutorials that I found, which I found very useful, which I plan to then use later, which I'll stream the entire process. But I'll quickly grab that playlist now for anyone who is interested. Here.
First step, make sure you're in the...
So this is a playlist which here I've called it CYBERPHONK tutorials under my channel. If you just go to my channel and then playlist, there's one called CYBERPHONK tutorials, and there's a whole bunch in here. I've currently tagged 30 different videos with different techniques. Like some of the results you can get in this stuff actually look really good. Like this one in particular, there's a bit of Photoshop involved in this one, like quite a bit, but they're starting off with like even some pretty decent results in Blender itself. And then there's some really nice stuff for some of these tests. There's some really, really good stuff, and it shows you like how to do them, like how to execute them. There's one that's really good that I like, which was, I did discuss this last time, but it was to do with shading and, well, texturing and projection mapping. This one. This is more for like an arcane style, is what they were referring to, but the technique is similar to what I would like to use, which is essentially projecting your UVs from the camera's perspective, and then you can paint into it as though it's like you're just doing it in Photoshop and then project it back on and clean up where necessary. So yeah, that one's going to be interesting. But yeah, you can kind of see the simplification, some of these shadows versus the backgrounds, which are a little bit more painterly. Well, they're a lot more painterly. There's a lot more texture involved in them. And so there's a lot of different interesting references in here that I would like to use. Like some of the imperfections in the line work as well would be really nice to add. You can kind of see where it feels like there's very distinct lines where the pen's been taken off. This is more for the backgrounds. Some of the vehicles as well. So all the vehicles will have a cell shading. Anything that's basically animated is going to be, or is in the foreground that the character interacts with, will be cell shaded. And then the rest of it's going to be more painterly. Like this stuff here. Like I really want to try and achieve something similar to this. And I don't have like the most thorough painting backgrounds, but I have done digital paintings in the past. Like even before I was animating, I was doing digital paintings. So I feel like I could, if I put my mind to it, I could achieve similar results to this. I've already been exploring brushes and that kind of stuff. I really love the lighting in here and some of the shading techniques and like how the light is bleeding. I could definitely feel like I can pull this stuff off. Hey, we have a Playblast, guys. So what I'll do is I'll pause the lo-fi again, give it a play, and we'll see what this the current version of the entire shot looks like. Nice. It's getting there. I feel like that's near enough. I'll have to double check if there is anything that I need to quote unquote reblock, but as far as I'm aware, I don't think there is. So we're actually at a place now where we could call blocking done, and we can now move into blocking plus, where we can start adding a lot more in betweens and exploring a lot more of the breakdowns and fleshing out some of the arcs and making it punchy and getting those rhythms really tied down. A little bit of what we did today, because there was a little bit like we've added a little bit more in betweens and what we did today, but I felt like that part was actually feeling one of the more fleshed out sections. Um, so yeah, I feel like we're in a pretty good spot, and it's all going to plan. That's the main thing. Um, so yeah, in the future streams, we should be able to start going in section by section and doing a bit more blocking plus, um, and starting to tie stuff down a bit more, which will be maybe a bit more insightful for you guys. Now getting to the next stage of my workflow, especially with a style like this, there's parts of it that I'm still learning, so there's going to be a bit of a learning curve and trying to do a bit of problem solving as well. But yeah, I'm happy with where it's going, so that's the main thing. But yeah, glad you're liking it, Animation Addict. And just to answer your question before we do end the stream, I see that you've put here. Till then, I would like to ask, how do I handle times where I'm struggling to get the results I want? It's a good question. I try to be very self-reflective, so I'm looking at it, trying to understand what's going wrong, even if I don't know exactly how to execute it. Or you can always get a second opinion, of course, if you ask someone else. Um, or it could be a case of you do smaller exercises to understand where your flaws are and try and refine and try and accomplish whatever it is that you feel like you're lacking and then revisit it. Or it could just be a case of maybe you've looked at it too much and you need a fresh pair of eyes to come in and say, like, oh, I think it's this thing. So obviously feedback helps. But even just taking a break, coming back to it the next day and being like, oh, okay, now that I've actually not thought about it so much, gone back in, I can see where my issues are. Um, so all I'll say is, like, don't beat yourself up about um, it not working straight away. Like, we don't always get the results we're looking for instantly, and it does take a bit of iteration. So yeah, that's a natural part of the process. So all I'll say is don't get worked up too much about that, because we all struggle at times. And I mean, even with this stuff for me, I go in with a plan, but sometimes I just make stuff up as I go along. And that's not to say that there aren't choices that could have been made better, because there definitely were, but it's more like, unless you explore those ideas, you may never find out. But also, if it's kind of working and it feels right, then it feels right. Sometimes you just have to go with your gut and your intuition and, yeah, hope it sticks. But yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in, and hopefully you've enjoyed this process. And then, yeah, we'll move into Blocking Plus very soon. So in the meantime, stay tuned via YouTube and on my socials of LinkedIn and Twitter, where I'll announce the next stream, the promotions for that. And yeah, till then, have a good one, and I'll see you soon.